Hey everyone, hope you all are well. The first thing that I'm doing as always is priming the eye area, and to do that I'm using the Urban Decay primer potion. I'm adding a few swipes of this across the eye area, and now I'm taking a synthetic brush and I'm using that to buff the product into the skin. So the primer will help the shadows to adhere to the eyes a bit better and will ensure they last all day long. Although I feel like a bit of a fraud saying that at this point, but we move on. The palette that I'm using today is the new Urban Decay Naked Wild West palette. This is the first palette that is fully vegan in the Naked range. You've got 12 desert inspired neutrals, as they say, ranging from peaches to browns to your blue and green hues. So the first shadow I'm taking is called Laredo. Laredo. And this is one of the matte shadows in the palette. It's a greyish taupe shade, and I'm using the vegan double-ended brush that comes with the palette to apply this eyeshadow. Now this shadow is very pigmented. I didn't realise that I'd picked up so much of my brush at first, but it's okay. Just meant that it'll take a little bit longer to blend out, and that's fine. So I'm using circular motions and back and forward sweeping motions to blend this colour into the crease. And when I get to the outer corner of the eye, I'm winging it out towards the tail of the brow at an angle. Then I'm going to flip my brush around, and on the other side we've got a small flat dense brush, and I'm using this then to smudge and smoke some of that taupe eyeshadow down along the lower lash line. Next then I'm taking a smidge of the Shadow Whiskey, and this is a really nice warm brown eyeshadow that has a matte finish. I'm using a touch of this initially just to add a little bit of depth. I tapped it down on the outer third of the lid, and then I'm buffing it into the crease now. And I did find this a little bit hard to blend. I felt that it kind of gathered in the crease a bit, but I was able to sort it out. So I decided then to go in with another bit of that whiskey eyeshadow. This time though, I loaded up my brush a bit more and repeated the same step as before. So I'm just tapping it down on the outer third of the lid, and I'm bringing it into the crease then. I expected a bit more from this shadow. I don't think how it looks in the pan is reflected on the eyes, if you get what I mean. It does give a nice bit of warmth, but I just wanted a bit more from this eyeshadow. Again, I found the second layer did just stick in the crease on the outer half of the eye, so I'm not really happy with how it looks. Now I'm using a small bullet shaped brush just to smoke that same eyeshadow down along the lower lash line. I'm running it back and forward and making sure as well to connect it up on that outer edge. I don't want any gaps on that outer corner. Next then I'm taking the eyeshadow Tex, and this was one of the shadows that I was most excited about. To be honest, the two teal shades I couldn't wait to get stuck into. So Tex is a deep matte teal shadow, and I'm using that smaller end of the double-ended brush that came with the palette to apply this shadow onto the lid. So I'm panning it down on the inner third of the eye, followed by the outer third of the eyelid, just leaving a gap there in the centre, which I'll come back to later on. Then I'm switching to a blending brush. I've picked up a little of that Tex shade, and I'm now connecting the shadow across in the crease. I'm starting above the outer third of the eyelid, and I'm sweeping across into the crease and connecting it to the shadow on the inner third of the eyelid. What I found with this shadow was that wherever I placed it, that's where it pretty much stayed. It's just like it clung to that area. I had very little leeway when it came to blending. I was trying to blend and buff the shadow out from the crease up towards the brow bone, and I just really struggled to do this. I really took my time with it, and I went back and forward, and I really just wasn't happy with how it looked. I mean, it's not the worst, I suppose, but I've cheaper palettes that perform better, and I just kind of feel that I shouldn't have to work this hard for it to only look okay. I noticed as well with this shadow that it faded considerably very quickly. So even though I wasn't sweeping my blending brush over the lid colour was losing its vibrancy. So I went back in again and I packed on another layer of that Tex shade on both the outer and inner third of the eye. And then because this brush is small and dense, I decided to try and add the shadow into the crease with this brush, and then go back in with my blending brush to fade out the edges. And I feel I sound very dramatic because it doesn't actually look too bad on camera, but I did really just struggle to blend out the eyeshadow. it just wouldn't budge for me. It took an awful lot of work to get it looking all right. And then I had an issue with it fading, which is a shame because it's such a beautiful colour. So now then I'm just sweeping that shadow down along the lower lash line with the brush that came with the palette, wriggling my brush back and forward down under the eye, really blending it out, and just as always making sure to connect it up on that outer edge. Next then I'm taking this concealer by Collection. It's a full coverage concealer and is cheap as chips. I'm picking it up on a synthetic brush and I'm just going to clean up the centre of the lid and tapping this down from the lash line and making my way up towards the crease in the centre of the eye, tapping my brush from side to side just to create a nice sharp line. Then I'm going back in and I'm applying some more of the text eyeshadow over the concealer, and that light base is going to alter the colour of the shadow slightly, which is fine. I actually really like the look of the bright centre piece, and then the lighter blue on either side of the deeper teal on the outer portion of the eye. You could leave it as is. It actually, I think, looks really nice this way, but I wanted to add some shimmer today. Now I'm taking then a small flat brush from Smashbox and I'm using some more of the teal eyeshadow, pressing this across the crease to give me a nice clean cut line. And then I'm switching back to my fluffy blending brush and I'm once again going to run over the edges now just to fade everything out to the best of my ability. Now I'm going in with the eyeshadow Bud, which is a gorgeous green tealy blue with a metallic finish. I'm using a flat C-shaped brush to pack this colour over the top of the concealer, and that bright base will really make the shimmery particles pop. As always, I feel I need to add a couple of layers of the shadow to really get it up to its full potential, so that's what I'll be doing. It's a gorgeous shade. I didn't really find it hard to apply. The only thing that I noticed with it was that it was a tad patchy, but when layered that can be sorted out. I'm taking the teal eyeshadow now once again and just patting over either side of the Bud eyeshadow to make sure those two shades fade nicely into one another. I'm flipping my brush around now and using the fluffy side just to make sure there's no harsh edges up towards the crease area. To add some depth now, I'm taking the shadow Pony Up, which is a deep dark taupey grey, and I'm using a small tapered brush to buff this around the eyeshadow Bud very, very lightly. I went back in with my fluffy blending brush once more just to, I suppose, blend the crease out. I just really did this out of sheer annoyance. Just found the shadow clung to the outer half of the crease, and no matter what I did, I just couldn't soften it. Really frustrating. But I'm now then going back in with an angled brush and I'm tapping some of that Pony Up shade from the outer corner to inner corner to prep the eye for the band of lashes that I'll be applying in a few. Then I'm taking the 24/7 Glide On Eye Pencil in Mainline and I'm using this to line my waterline. And I always harp on about these pencils. I really do love them. I think I have them in nearly every colour this stage. They're nice and pigmented and last all day. I'm then running the Pony Up shadow down along the lower lash line, just adding a touch of smokiness to that area, and then I'm going to go in and apply some lashes. I'll find out the name of these. I know they're from a company called Be A Belle. It's an Irish company. And then I'm adding the Lash Freak Mascara by Urban Decay. I'm applying this to the lower lashes, and then I'm also using it to blend my own lashes in with the false ones. But then that's it. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, I suppose. I don't know. This is the first impressions of the palette. I mean, it doesn't look too bad there in the finished look, but it took an awful lot of work to get it looking alright. And I just, at this point, don't think it's worth the money. I might give it another go. We'll see. If you've used it, let me know how you got on, and I'll chat to you soon.